So let's just cut to it. The Philippines isn't just having a bad month, it's weathering what feels like the planet's wrath in high definition. We're talking earthquakes and typhoons and landslides and floods all in the same 2-week span. Like nature sat down, rolled its sleeves up, and decided,
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Shallow, sharp, near Cebu. You didn't need to check a news app to know something hit. The dishes rattled, the windows buzzed, and your heart skipped. A magnitude 6.9 that didn't just move buildings, it sent a chill up the collective spine of the region. And before you could even finish asking, is that it? Another quake, even stronger. A 7.4 offshore, enough to light up tsunami warnings like a Christmas tree. Cue the sirens, cue the evacuation orders, cue people grabbing go bags, kids, pets, and rushing inland while their phones blasted warnings and Facebook turned into a panic machine. Now let's pause there, because this is where disaster response gets messy. While real-time data from FIVLX showed a minimal wave height barely 30 centimeters, a viral Facebook post was claiming a 15-meter tsunami was inbound. 15 meters. That's like a 5-story building coming at you made of seawater. Of course, it wasn't true. But the panic? That was. And in that chaos, people don't wait to fact-check. They run. Or worse, they freeze. And misinformation like that doesn't just confuse, it kills. It erodes trust in the very warnings designed to save lives. Now, barely days after that, the sky darkened, and not in a poetic, dramatic way, in a real way. Typhoon Kavi slammed into Luzon with winds strong enough to rip roofs off and enough rainfall to turn highways into rivers. Bridges collapsed, power lines snapped like twigs, and entire towns were left stranded, cut off, and soaking. While relief efforts scrambled to reach the hardest hit, another storm was forming, Typhoon Funwang. And this one wasn't just tagging along, it came in roaring, as if determined to flood whatever Kavi didn't drown first. This is what scientists call compound disasters. For everyone else, it's just the worst possible timing. No time to clean up, no time to rebuild, just wave after wave, wind after wind. Disaster stacked on disaster like nature's cruel version of Jenga. And then the land started to move again. In places like Compostela Valley and Bohol, it wasn't the rain or wind that finished the job. It was the ground. Quakes had already weakened the hillsides. Cracks had formed. Trees leaned in unnatural angles. And when the torrential rains came, those slopes gave way, burying roads, homes, and families under tons of rock and mud. And here's where it gets truly devastating. It didn't have to be this bad. Because the signs were there. We knew about the tension cracks. We saw the soil shifting. The satellite images, the LiDAR scans, they all said the same thing. This area is at risk. But warnings are only useful if people have somewhere safe to go. And when you're living on a fractured mountainside because there's nowhere else to live, evacuate isn't just hard, it's impossible. So yeah, we need to talk about resilience. Not as a buzzword, not as some feel-good phrase for press releases. Real resilience. Because the people of the Philippines, they're already resilient. They've had to be, rebuilding in flip-flops with tarps and hope, laughing through candlelit dinners when the grid fails, singing karaoke in evacuation centers. That's not just cultural spirit, that's survival mode. But spirit alone doesn't rebuild a broken seawall. It doesn't keep a bridge standing when floodwaters rise. It doesn't prevent a landslide when the ground has been broken too many times. We need infrastructure that holds. Cities that don't collapse under pressure. Communities that can evacuate before the sirens, because they've practiced, not just prayed. We need better. Because this can't be the baseline anymore. And climate change, it's the accelerant. Let's not pretend these super typhoons are random. Warmer ocean waters mean stronger storms. Rising sea levels mean higher storm surges. Stalled atmospheric systems mean longer downpours. It's not your imagination. The disasters are hitting harder and more often. And if you think this is as bad as it gets, think again. Because what the scientists are saying now behind the charts and graphs and cautious optimism is this: we're just getting started. The Western Pacific Basin is heating up. The jet stream is acting drunk. And tectonic activity is alive and well. Which means more megaquakes, more monster typhoons, and more communities caught in the crossfire. Now let's flip this for a second. What would preparedness actually look like? It's not just early warning systems, though they're critical. And shout out to Pag-asa and FIVLX for doing what they do with the tools they have. But real preparedness, it starts way earlier. It's stronger building codes that don't cut corners.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
And it's funding, not just after a disaster, but before. Because let's be real, every peso spent on prevention saves 10 during response. But for some reason, we keep choosing to pay after the damage is done. Why? Because prevention doesn't get headlines. It's not dramatic. No one makes viral content about what didn't collapse. But maybe it's time we change that narrative. Because what's happening in the Philippines right now isn't just a national story. It's a global warning. A test case for what happens when climate volatility and geological instability collide. And right now, that test is failing. But it doesn't have to. The technology exists. The science is there. The spirit of the people, stronger than ever. What's missing? Political will, strategic funding, and the belief that resilience means more than just surviving the next hit. It means avoiding it entirely. So as we stare down another storm season, another quake season, another round of uncertainty, maybe the question isn't what comes next. Maybe the real question is, what are we willing to do before it does? Because if we're just hoping to ride this out, we're already behind. But if we start now building, preparing, educating, empowering, then maybe, just maybe, the next breaking news headline won't be about what we lost. It'll be about what we protected. So let us know in the comments what's happening in your town. Are you seeing the cracks? Are the alerts reaching you? What would you do differently? Because this isn't just a news story. It's real. It's happening. And every voice counts. And don't forget to subscribe because the storms may keep coming, but so will we. Breaking it down, calling it out, and keeping watch while the world shifts under our feet. Until next time, stay dry, stay ready, and don't ignore the rumble. Let's be real by this point. If you live in the Philippines, you don't need a scientific breakdown to know something's off. You don't need another expert telling you climate volatility is increasing when your roof's already gone and your street looks like a river. What you need is honesty, urgency, action. Because let's say it louder, the Philippines is under siege not by one disaster, but by a never-ending chain reaction. And if you're feeling tired, overwhelmed, even numb, that's not weakness. That's what happens when the disasters don't give you time to breathe. But nature doesn't pause for your recovery. You're still mopping up flood water from the last typhoon, and suddenly you feel the floor sway. The kind of quake where your brain freezes for a second, unsure if it was real until the power flickers and your neighbors are shouting. And in the seconds after, the fear isn't just was that big. It's is this the start of something worse? Because you've learned that the first hit isn't always the last. You've seen it before, the shaking, then the tsunami alert, then the misinformation tornado spinning through group chats and Facebook. Suddenly someone's cousin is saying there's a 20-meter wave incoming and people are sprinting to higher ground while the actual scientific data says the ocean barely hiccuped. This isn't hypothetical. This just happened. And that's the thing, we're not talking about ancient history or archived footage. This is current, ongoing, right now. The ground, the sea, the sky, they're all reacting together, as if the entire region is caught in some escalating mood swing, and the Philippines is taking the brunt of it. So when experts talk about compound disasters, this is what they mean. It's not just the quake, or the typhoon, or the flood. It's all of them happening back to back, feeding off one another. The quake triggers landslide cracks. The storm fills those cracks with water. Then the land gives way. And if your house is built into that hillside, what happens next isn't just science. It's personal. It's terrifying. And the saddest part, we keep calling it resilience when people survive. Let's unpack that. Yes, Filipinos are tough. Yes, they're resourceful. Yes, they bounce back with grace and laughter that should honestly win awards. But surviving trauma over and over again shouldn't be a cultural expectation. Resilience should be a bonus, not a baseline. Because what about the people who can't bounce back? The families who lose everything, not once, but repeatedly. The ones who rebuild with plywood and prayer, only to have the next storm rip through it again. What do we call that? Not resilience. Not strength. That's exhaustion. That's the high cost of being stuck in the crosshairs of climate and tectonic warfare. And then there's the silence. You know the one. The eerie calm after a disaster. When the storm passes or the ground stops shaking and you're left staring at what used to be your home, your street, your school. That's when the real questions hit. Will help come? How do we start again? And maybe the most haunting of all. What if it happens again tomorrow? Because it might. We're not just guessing anymore. The patterns are changing. The storms are more frequent. The quakes more unpredictable. The infrastructure, creaking under pressure it was never designed to handle. Buildings meant for yesterday's threats are facing tomorrow's catastrophes and failing. So what's the plan? No, really, what is the plan? Because we're past the point of pretending this is normal. If this is the new climate reality, then the way we build, respond, and protect has to evolve fast. That means early warning systems in every barangay, not just in cities, not just where there's funding, everywhere. Disaster education in schools. Kids shouldn't be figuring out where to run while the ground's shaking. It should be muscle memory by the time they're 10. Climate-proof infrastructure, flood-resistant roads, elevated evacuation centers, buildings that don't crumble in a storm, community drills that don't get postponed because of bad weather, irony, anyone, and most importantly, leadership that listens, that funds the boring stuff like drainage, slope protection, and communication systems before they become headline failures. Because while politicians are out here cutting ribbons, local volunteers are digging trenches with shovels, trying to stop the next flood from swallowing their homes. They're making sandbags out of rice sacks. They're turning boats into ambulances. They're doing everything they can with nothing. And still, when the camera crews leave, when the trending hashtags fade, those communities are left with tarps, trauma, and a long list of unanswered questions. But maybe the biggest one is this: when will it stop? And the hard answer is, it won't. Not anytime soon. We're living in the middle of a tectonic, climatic storm. Sea levels are rising. Rainfall patterns are breaking records. The Pacific Plate is restless. And the Philippines is caught right where all of it collides. So no, we can't stop the earthquakes, or the typhoons, or even the floods. But we can control how ready we are for them. That's the part we still have power over. Because while nature is indifferent, our response isn't. We can prepare faster, build smarter, communicate better. We can stop pretending this isn't going to keep happening and start getting ahead of the next wave, the next shake, the next surge. And while we're at it, let's stop shaming people for being scared. Fear isn't weakness, it's the first step to doing something. The moment you realize this isn't a fluke, that you need to pack a go bag, that you need to talk to your family about a meetup point, that maybe that next barangay disaster drill, you actually go this time. Because real courage isn't pretending nothing will happen, it's preparing for what might. And that's what we need now. Not just hope, but action. Not just prayers, but planning. Because the Philippines deserves more than a reputation for survival. It deserves safety. It deserves foresight. It deserves systems that don't collapse when nature pushes back. So if you're watching this, reading this, feeling this, don't wait for the next siren. Use this moment. Check your kit. Learn your evacuation route. Ask your mayor where the funds went. Talk to your neighbors. Start the conversation now, not after. Because the next disaster, it's not a matter of if. It's only a matter of when. And if you've got a story, if you've lived through one of these recent storms, or seen your community rally after the quakes, drop it in the comments. Let us know what worked, what didn't, what you wish had been there when everything went dark. And don't forget to subscribe, because the storm may not wait but will be here when it hits. Breaking it down, speaking the truth, and making sure the stories that matter don't get buried under the rubble. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and don't mistake the calm for safety. The ground may be still for now, but the countdown is always ticking. Because here's the thing no one wants to admit out loud. The calm after the storm. It's a trap. It lulls you in. The sky's clear, the wind dies down, and there's a weird, eerie sense of relief. People go outside. They start to sweep, to salvage, to count the damages. Maybe the water's still knee-deep. Maybe your roof is half gone, but at least it's over, right? Except it's not. Because if you live in the Philippines, you know that in disaster season nothing is really over. And that quiet moment, that's just the pause before the next hit. Maybe it's another storm forming out in the Pacific. Maybe it's a second quake. Maybe it's the hill above your town, saturated with rain and split open by seismic cracks, just waiting to let go. That's the danger of living on the edge of the ring of fire, of climate change, of infrastructure limits. There's always something coming next. But here's what makes it worse. Pretending it's not happening. We can't keep treating every new disaster as a surprise when we've got all the evidence. The satellite data, the early warning systems, the evacuation models, the climate projections that literally spell it out. It's going to get worse. So why do we keep rebuilding the same way? Why do coastal communities that get swallowed by storm surges still rebuild 5 feet from the waterline? Why do hillside villages hit by landslides not get relocated? Why do evacuation centers double as storage sheds until the typhoon season rolls in? It's not because people are stubborn. It's because they don't have options, or the systems meant to protect them are underfunded, underprioritized, or worse, ignored entirely. And when those systems fail, the burden falls on the people, on parents dragging children through waist-high water, on teenagers carrying rice sacks on their backs, on barangay volunteers turned emergency responders overnight, guiding people with flashlights and walkie-talkies because the actual disaster team never arrived. And still, we call it resilience. But let's be real. Resilience is just a fancy word for you survived because you had no other choice. We need to stop romanticizing struggle and start demanding solutions. Not just post-disaster relief funds. Not just speeches about Bayanihan spirit. Real, long-term strategies. Like redesigning urban planning around flood zones instead of inside them. Creating mandatory, regularly updated evacuation maps for every municipality, not just cities. Investing in communications infrastructure so alerts don't get cut the second cell towers go down. Empowering local governments with budgets and authority to act before they're waiting for national approval while the river is rising. Because here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Preparedness isn't just technical, it's political. Someone decides whether your town gets flood pumps or a new basketball court. Someone decides if your school will be retrofitted for earthquakes or left as is because it survived the last one. And you know who pays when they choose wrong, not them. You, your family, your community. So yes, the science is important, but so is the budget hearing, so is the local election, so is the public pressure to make better decisions now, not after the water is neck deep or the earth has swallowed a highway hole. Because let's be clear, the next disaster will come, and it will test everything, not just buildings and roads, but trust. Trust in institutions, in leadership, in whether anyone actually learned from the last time. And if we fail that test again, people won't just lose homes. They'll lose hope. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.